Alright, now random tech tips from Sormau, part, I don't know. VFC mags for the AK. A common problem on those is that the follower, the transfer bar tab on the left, on the rear, doesn't rise when the follower is depressed and BVs are loaded. That is usually caused by the internal spring that lifts this lever slipping out of alignment and preventing the bar from rising all the way. It sometimes comes up halfway, and that isn't enough for the valve knocker to reliably strike it. So what we need to do is take the mag apart. By default, you drive the pins out from right to left. For that you need a hammer and a 1.5 or 2 millimeter pin punch. I think a 2 millimeter will work, but I'm using 1.5. Don't ask me about metric. Imperial, I don't do that. Let me just do the second one more quietly on my lap. Once you have the pins started, you can use pliers to pull them out. They are pretty solidly in there, depending on how new your gun is as well. And on whether you've done this before. This one's slightly bent now, but that just happens, and it's not too big a travesty because you don't have to do this more than once, ideally. Well, if you need to relube the mag, that's also applicable. Then, with a 3.5 millimeter Phillips screwdriver, push in solidly when undoing these because they can be tight, and take out these two screws at the top. Put them to the side. Then next, I like holding on to the feed track at the front so it doesn't push up. And then we just gently lift off this, and as you can see, the spring that we are going to have to do some work on already slipped out of its alignment. Now we can let go of the feed track. It'll rise up, that's fine. That doesn't really bother us. We need to push it in later. What we need to be concerned with primarily is this spring that sits on the side and acts on the transfer bar. That spring, the short leg of it, is bent inwards slightly from the factory. On the original version, batch 1 magazines, it wasn't bent at all, and that did not work well. VFC have proceeded to put a small bend in it, but that bend is a bit weak and they sometimes still slip out of alignment when assembling. So 4 out of my 7 mags were dead on arrival and I had to bend the spring a bit. Now, put in a gently put in a bit more of a bend with the pliers. Don't overdo it because otherwise it'll interfere with the body of the magazine. Then, by the way, if you have a valve key, you can also undo the outlet valve at this point if you want to loop that, which is something that you may want to consider if your gun is feeling sluggish. And specifically on the VFC and GHK, VFC AK and GHK style magazines with a interesting valve arrangement. Now, let me explain. We take the hook on this spring and loop it over the extension on the transfer bar. That hook on the transfer bar pointing downwards. Then we push in the transfer bar, put the spring over its peg, and align it. Now it looks like this. You can hopefully see that it is pretty flush with the outside and is being pushed in when it's assembled. Next, we need to put in the transfer lever. For that, we compress the feed spring. It's not a particularly tough feed spring. Then we need something like this screwdriver here. You can use a few BBs, 3 BBs or so is perfect. And then we just put that in and make sure it rests on top of this transfer bar. Then we can take the feed lips, well, the external feed lips, magazine top, sleeve that over gently, not dislodging anything, making sure that the spring is still in place. And voila, then we can release the screwdriver once up, but do hold the top in place. Now we can check if the transfer bar is rising properly. It should go click every time. Next, I like to take the screws and put them back in the top. Come on. There. They don't need to be tightened right now, just enough to hold the top cover in, make things easier for us. Then I take a screwdriver, push down with my fingers on the top, gently tighten them. They only thread into aluminum, so don't overdo it. And then from left to right, put in the assembly pins. They have one knurled side. That knurled side goes on the left by default. On one of my mags I mixed that up, but I'll show you a little trick in a second how to prevent yourself from making a mistake in that direction. Okay, I'm gonna do this on my lap because it's late at night and doing it on the tape roll on the table is allowed. Okay, now these pins are flush on the left side and recessed on the right side, and that's how I know which side I need to put my punch, because I only punch them out from the recessed side to the non-recessed side. That's a bit of a memory aid for myself. Now we once again check if function is still given. Yep, that looks good. If you want to activate dry fire mode, don't forget to always depress the follower first and then push the dry fire lever forwards, otherwise you may break shit and you don't want that. But that's it. Your VFC AK mag should now be fully functional, provided that the valve has also slightly lubricated. Cheers!